All right, how you making, Bone Gang, and welcome to the second episode of the Pelican Bone Outdoors podcast. We got my boy Frank right here. Say hello, Frank.
Hello, Frank.
Good job. Good job. Now, for those of you who don't know, Frank is my neighbor, and let me take these headphones off. That's driving me insane. He's my neighbor. I moved here to Lafitte. What 4 months before the storm? He and I met. He has a YouTube channel, a podcast, TikTok,
Facebook,
and Instagram.
Instagram.
Is that it? I think it
I
pretty much
think that's
covers
it.
all of them. So anyway, today's topic, I named the title is "What is teal season?" or something like that. Heck, I don't even remember what I named the daggum thing. Oh yeah, what teal season is for? There we go. Now, Frank, you haven't duck hunted
A ton.
in a long time.
No.
When's the last time you duck hunted?
Uh I don't know. That picture the two pictures I sent you, the one without having a beard.
Yeah, that didn't even look like you, dude.
That
Like
was
Frank does not look like Frank without a beard. Like I didn't even reckon. I'm like, who's this dude sending me pictures of? It's kind of weird.
that was probably the last time I duck hunted, which was 10 plus years.
Jeez. So
Oh no, I went with my father-in-law one time, and okay, it's probably been about 10 years because me and my wife weren't married.
So the what is teal season for is basically we're gonna do like a early hunting season. Like what are your traditions? What do what do you do to prep for the season, as well as the difficulties of the season? We'll talk in a minute about how Frank and I went teal hunting this morning, and it didn't work out as planned. So I guess you don't have any like rituals for duck hunting because you haven't done
I'm
it.
like the John Daly of hunting, except not good at it. There's no prep at all.
So like last year, because of Hurricane Ida, I didn't have any. I didn't have a teal season. I didn't go teal season hunting. I didn't go hunting teal at all last year.
We should
English
have
is
hunted
tough.
in the backyard back here.
Yeah, well, I've seen more fly over my house these last couple of weeks than I definitely did in the land that we hunted. Um, so we went out this morning. I spent all day yesterday getting everything prepped. Got the boat blind on there. I cleaned up my teal decoys. Got them looking real nice, and got up early in the morning. Went set them out. Everything was looking great. The weather was finally cool. We had temperatures didn't really drop much with the front, but we had a drier air come through, which was very nice. So it was a beautiful morning in the blind. Thought if we didn't see any teal, we always see Gallinoo. We always see Nutra, this and that. Well, turns out Frank's just about as bad luck at with hunting as he is fishing because we didn't see nothing.
But now Vinny's not telling you. If you go watch the tagging video, notice what redfish came in that boat first.
We're not
Just
talking
saying.
about that, Frank. We're talking hunting. But now we ended up seeing what one teal while we were in the
Yeah.
blind, and then after we went out, we were looking for Nutra because you can hunt those under power. So we loaded up the shotguns with some heavier shot, went exploring trying to find some Nutra, and no Nutra.
No, I couldn't even. I think, but a lot of that because normally when duck season comes around or later in the year, the vegetation will actually die off, and it hasn't died off yet. There's more green out there than anything. So
Yeah, that's one of the issues is you couldn't. I mean, there were probably a ton of them there, but you couldn't see them. They had at least 4 foot from the bank of lilies and
yeah,
that other aquatic vegetation, whatever that is.
the Grand Ole's that we probably should have went pick.
Yeah, probably so. But again, I don't know. It's public land. I'm not sure exactly what you can take from it and what you can't. We'd have to do some research because I know there's like a limit on blackberries at some of them. You
Yeah,
can only take so many blackberries, but you can take them. So I'd rather stay within the confines of the law, and if ignorance of the law is no excuse, I'm gonna go ahead and stay away from that until I get that figured out. But teal season for me is basically just a dry run for big duck. I mean, that's why last year I was so discombobulated opening weekend at Big Duck because I didn't have my teal season. Usually I go out there because I never shoot teal. Dude, I've been duck hunting for 5 years thanks to my buddy Spencer. He got me turned on to it when I started over at the fire department, and never I'm not gonna say never because I'm not sure, but I don't remember shooting teal or very many during teal season. A lot of that is just getting all the bugs out. You know, you get the see what you forgot, see what you're gonna need, see what's broken, see what you gotta fix. You know, obviously my boat was broken.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I did that before the day before teal season. Ended up getting that fixed. That's money I didn't have that I needed to spend. But what about so you deer hunt a lot?
Yeah,
Is there any prep in that for you?
so since I got my crossbows, I've gotten really lazy at prep because a crossbow is just like a rifle. I go out there, I squeeze one or two bolts off, and I'm prepped. You know, make sure it's just still on. I ain't bumped it or anything. I might, well, with the crossbow, I might shoot at different yardage because why not? You know, make sure that all my pins are still on. And then with rifle hunting, I really just go and shoot my rifle about 3 rounds, make sure they're grouping. Um, so I got a funny story about rifle grouping. The scope that's on my rifle now, I bought it and I had a real cheap scope, like a Buckmasters or something. It was like one of them $40 scopes at
Right.
Walmart.
One you put on a 22?
Yeah. So, right. So I had nothing but issues with scopes on this rifle up until this point. So I had a decent cheap one and it was shooting good, but I decided I wanted to update my current system basically. You know, I wanted a better optic on it. So I bought a Nikon Pro Staff. Well, I had a gift card. My parents told me I was going to go. They were
Big
going to give me
baller.
X amount of money. And I found a Nikon Pro Staff 5. I think the 7 had just came out, so it was a little bit on discount. And the place I walked into, they had all these different black Pro Staffs. Well, I have a silver rifle. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, they got, and I see the silver one's cheaper than the rest of them. I'm like,
Score.
I'm like, so I start talking. I was like, man, I don't know how a silver scope would look on my rifle, you know, because they haven't seen the rifle yet. And the dude's like, well, look, we can authorize up to an extra $50 off. And I'm like, so I was picking between the Nikon Pro Staff and the Vortex Crossfire, I think it is. They were about the same ballpark MSRP. But by the time I got like $200 off the Nikon,
right.
I bought it for like $200. I was like, that's good enough for me, you know? So, but what's funny about getting them the group, so I have a buddy that he doesn't hunt, but he loves guns. He's the guy that will go and shoot a rifle until his arm falls off. So I went out with him. At the time, I had a toolbox in my truck. So we set up the lead sled on top of my truck and was shooting over the hood of the truck. So we're sitting there and we're, bah! All right, high. You go down. Clicks it down. Bah! Oh, extremely low to the left. All right, up and to the right. Now it's on the opposite end of the target. We shot a box of shells. Could not get, I mean, and then like doing the whole thing where you shoot, you stop, let the barrel cool back down. Because cold firing on a rifle is different than hot firing. I don't know how much it affects shotguns, but
certainly not as much as it does rifles.
So I would let the barrel cool back down, shoot a couple more shots, and it just was walking everywhere. So then I grab another box. Now, when I buy bullets, I'll try to buy 3 or 4 of the same lot. Because the lot is almost not guaranteed, but the lot will be a similar shooting pattern. Well, I had 2 of the same lot, and the third box I grabbed, I didn't realize was a different lot. And thank goodness I had a different lot.
It's so different?
The lot was bad.
Huh.
So I'm telling this story to a guy I work with, and I'm like, man, you want to guess what happened? He's like, really? I did it at a deer. I missed it like 6. He paid like $1,000, $1,500 to go to Alabama to hunt deer, and missed every single thing he shot at.
Really?
And he said he called and was like, this is my lot number. They had a recall on that lot number. So I think I got one box of bullet for free, but I couldn't be like, oh, I shot the whole box.
See, that's crazy. I don't have much hunting experience with rifles because everything I do is basically shotgun except for neutral with the 22s. Because where I did hunt, probably not gonna. Well, I might deer hunt this year on the park, but probably not. Just because it's so hard getting them stands out there in the marsh. But out there you can only use shotgun. So when I did hunt deer, never shot one. Never even shot at one out there. You can only use shotgun. So I got a 308 hunting rifle. Just never had the opportunity to use it. I've it's sighted in and all ready to go. But supposedly might have a couple opportunities this year. Hopefully get on a deer, put some deer meat in the freezer. Because Lord knows I got enough Nutra meat in there for now. So
yeah, well, I'll trade you some beaver meat for Nutra meat.
Yeah, you can trade me my beaver meat for some of my Nutra meat.
You got your item.
Actually, half of yours is I'm sure some of that Nutra in there is yours too.
Probably because at the time I didn't have freezer space, and I was like,
that I can hear now in the comments about some haters.
All right, so I'm going with the crossbow.
Offended.
110%, right? So the Quality Association does the thing you deer hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So class hunting the next day. They teach you to shoot with a crossbow. There's no recoil. And I could give you my crossbow right now, and you could shoot my crossbow. I couldn't give you a and turn around and do it. Where a crossbow gets a ton of is there's people that think crossbow I can shoot a quarter group 100 yards and they shoot with it, or they shoot at another animal with it. The problem is, stick it into a target. It might stick, but the difference is when you hit an animal. So with my crossbow, I don't take a shot with my crossbow that I wouldn't take with my regular bow.
Mm-hmm.
So for the most part, it should be ethical. And then I'm not going to take a stupid shot. Like, I don't feel comfortable shooting a deer head on with a bow or crossbow, just because the breastbone and all, if you hit that, you're not going to penetrate it. Or if they throw their head down, because I've seen tons of pictures that people kill a deer and they'll have a arrow like lodged in the head of it.
Well, I think a lot of people's it's that purist mentality, which is hilarious because you're using a compound bow that has
if I have somebody that comes at me with the argument about purists, and they're shooting a recurved nose sight,
then you can say something
with stone points. You can tell me whatever.
I want a carved arrow, a real feather on the back. I want a stone arrowhead, a recurved bow that you made out of hickory or something, strung up with some sinew from an old coyote you killed. And then you go out there in moccasins and shoot yourself a deer. And you can tell me my crossbow ain't good enough.
I mean, because ultimately the technology in my crossbow is the same as a compound bow. I mean, you have a trigger mechanism, and
it's the same concept, the same mechanics. Yeah, I want to get a bow. I'd like to get a recurve or a longbow or whatever, old primitive style, but I mean, practicality for hunting purposes, I'd like to get I don't know. I go back and forth between a crossbow and a compound bow. The thing about crossbows is you can get a decent one for, a decent price, all set up, ready to go. So I think cheaper than you can get really good.
I use a Crossman. Oh, I don't even know. It's a cheaper brand, but like,
no, I'm gonna make fun of you no matter what you say.
So I know. I could have a Raven, a brand new Raven. I thought
you have the top of the line. I'm gonna make fun of you because it's the top of the line. But, if you have a,
but I have my dad. So my dad is the research king. Like when he goes to buy something, he's gonna buy the best bang for his buck.
Yeah.
And he bought one. He has the identical setup to me. Like if you look, I could shoot his bolts. I could shoot his everything. And it's comical because my mom's like, how do you know which one's which? My dad's like, mine has a discoloration on the stock. Like, that's the only way you can tell them. And also he has a hand crank. So instead of pulling it back, he's got a crank on his. So, but besides that, they're identical setups. And somebody was asking us, well, why? I was like, look, I've bow hunted before. And what's nice about having somebody with an identical setup is that when you break a bolt,
yeah, you can just
if you run out of bolts, because you've seen me do things
in general.
But but I mean, even the pod. So my pod. What's today? Wednesday.
Yep.
So the podcast, actually, me and Chris actually dive in deep on this same conversation about crossbow versus compound and
shameless plug.
But I mean, we even get into mechanical versus fixed, and at some point you got to look at it and be like, you can't argue amongst the community, right? No. So whether the hunting community just needs to support everything hunting, and because what's going to wind up happening is death by 1,000 cuts.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say, oh, well, we're not going to allow bear hunting with dogs. Well, the bear hunters are just going to be like, oh, we don't care about that. And then it's going to be like, well, we're not going to allow bear hunting. Well, the dog bear hunters are going to be like, oh, we don't care. You already took our rights away. I mean, so eventually it's going to, I've heard, I think it's called guard the gate. It's basically anything that's anti-hunting, trapping, land access. It's just, you have to stop, even if you don't agree with it.
Yeah, you got to be careful with some of that stuff, though. I mean, I'm not educated enough on a lot of that to really argue about it, but
yeah. And I know I watch a lot of the trapping stuff, and I mean a lot of the news coming out, and it's like on federal property, they want to ban all trapping.
Yeah,
which
that's not a good idea.
Is a mistake, and let's ask California about how when you ban trapping, it goes.
Right. Yeah,
like they have problems with mountain lions now.
Well, they're already having problems with wolves in some of those.
But it's the eyelash theory there. Anything with eyelashes, people care about.
Yeah, fish. It's like, it's just a fish. You put
a turkey, like nobody's like, oh my god, he shot a turkey.
Give him some eyebrows, man, and it's a whole different. That thing's got a soul, But yeah, what about blind snacks?
Blind snacks. Oh, what do I bring for blind?
Yeah, what do you bring for blind snacks? Because notice today in the boat, I didn't see you pull out nothing to eat.
I didn't have anything to eat.
I busted out my carb smart tortilla, slapped some peanut butter on that sucker, and had me some protein for breakfast.
So honestly, I'll bring, most of the time I try to bring something that's natural smelling. I'll bring an apple, an orange, because with deer hunting, it's
it's a different ball game. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it attracts them, and and what was comical is Mississippi used to have a complete ban on supplemental feeding.
Right.
So if it grew in the ground, you could have it, but if you couldn't throw it out. The guys I used to hunt with and that just used to laugh because I'd bring apples with me all the time. Well, what would I do with the apple core when I was done? I'd drop it down underneath the stand until I was done.
And then bam, you're in trouble for hunting over food.
But they would all joke with it.
Yeah.
But Mississippi
they went from no corn on the ground to you could have it, but it had to be 100 yards away and out of line of sight.
Yeah.
And so I think now it's just, you can just put it right in front of your stand. Huh?
So yeah, the evolution. So when we hunted in Natchez, it was no feed at all. Then about halfway through that time, which was about the time I was going into high school, they went to 100 yards out of sight.
Mm-hmm.
So in between then and when I started dating my wife, they changed the law to where it had to be 100 yards away from the stand.
Right.
Within the last 3 years, they're like, as long as you don't just dump it on the ground, we don't care.
So how do you can put it in a feeder or something?
Yeah, you put it in a you can do a spin cast feeder, gravity feeder. We've actually built some troughs. And what it is we took a 30-gallon drum, cut it in half,
mm-hmm.
and made it to where it had a roof over it so where our protein wouldn't get nasty. So that's one way to do it.
In Louisiana, you can dump whatever you want wherever you want.
Yeah, Louisiana is like,
except for management areas.
And they just reduced the size of the CWA exclusion zone, but in the CWD exclusion zone, you can't use any supplemental feed.
Right.
Which, in my personal opinion, if you do a food plot good enough, you don't need supplemental feeding. We do it where I hunt at, but I'm not the property owner, and I'm not the one putting all my money into it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to wait till I get some years of deer hunting under my belt before I can argue any of that. But of course, duck hunting keeps going downhill the way it is. I might have to switch over to deer hunting. But like we seen 3 teal today. One while we were in the blind, and 2 while we was I think they were teal. They were kind of far away. They might have been wood ducks. But most of the time for teal season, I don't really see teal. And where we went today, usually all year it holds teal. That's the only thing it holds. Every now and then you'll get a big duck, at least lately. Like I said, I only started hunting, I think this is my 5th or 6th season. And of course, I talked to everybody, and duck hunting was great until I started hunting. So maybe I'm the one that has bad luck, But I forgot where I was going with that.
Well, I'll say this. I think duck people blame, oh, well, they're doing heated ponds, or they're doing this, they're doing that up north. And I think it's kind of like the situation with the redfish down here. You can't blame it on one factor.
No, it's not one thing.
It's
correct.
It's multiple factors that are affecting it. And we used to have great duck hunting when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
The few times I remember going with my dad, but like my dad wasn't a duck hunter. He was always a deer hunter and is hardcore. And later in life now, he's still hardcore, but he does trips instead of he'll go to Missouri and do like a DIY hunt once a year and spend the same amount of money as he would spend on a lease here. But they have bigger deer. Nobody bow hunts up there, he said. Like you go to the parking lot on a WMA during bow season, and it's you in the parking lot.
Yeah, well, it ain't like that here.
No.
But the ducks, it's a combination of things for sure. I think the flooded cornfields have something to do with it. I do think the heated pond, keeping the ice off the water has something to do with it. But then also you got natural issues like with the climate change. I mean, just in the last 5 to 10 years, we don't get cold winters that last any more than 2 days. We'll get a cold snap and then that's it. We don't really have it to where it's cold enough, long enough up north to push them down this far. I think they're stopping in like Arkansas or North Louisiana, and then you get generations of ducks that never come down any further, and they don't even know Louisiana exists.
Yeah, and it's all a learned behavior, right?
Right.
So, and then I've also heard another theory that was put out, and I'm not smart enough to understand how it works, but ducks basically they think can read the magnetic fields of the earth.
That sounds pretty smart to me.
Well, I'm not. No, I'm
not
just
you
saying.
Can't. They can. Okay, I got you.
So they can read the magnetic fields all around the earth, and magnetic north moves every single year.
Right.
Well, it's going. I think since 1970, it's moved over 600 miles north, further north. So you think about what's 600 miles. South Arkansas, if that, it might actually be mid Arkansas. So you got ducks that's never even.
Might just have to wait till it comes back around, I guess. I don't know, but you seen like Nate from Fallen Tide Outdoors. He looked like he they got a few. He said it was slow, but I mean they had they had about a dozen freaking ducks on there.
Well, but I know a guy I work with went to Venice, and he posted on Sunday that they had a 2-man limit, and the possession limit's 3 days now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when they changed that, but they've changed it to a 3-day possession limit. So if the way I understand a possession limit, you can't actively have 3 days in your boat while you're actively hunting.
You're like at the camp.
But if you're at a campground, you can have 3 days. Is it not burning?
I don't know. But so he had a few teal. Well, I mean, like Venice, I'm not surprised when people shoot ducks in Venice. There always seems to be ducks in Venice, and I don't know my way around there to just take my boat and go, especially where they got the sandbars and stuff like that from the river, and then you got to cross the river.
Well, I know like he was telling me he goes to Delta, which is the federal management area, and there is no motorized vessels in the management area.
And is that on this side of the river though?
I have no idea.
I'm not kayaking across the river, I can tell you that. There's a no motors in Point of Shannon. I've been wanting to go down there too, because there is a campsite on the WMA. You can camp there, and if I looked at the map correctly, you can take a boat around to the edge of it, and I can launch the kayak from the other side. And there's also a launch on the WMA. But I'd like to try that out. But again, I don't know how the duck hunting there is either.
Yeah, and it's one of them things. Like he was saying, a lot of that though with the sandbars. What's great about it is you can get by with chest waders because it's not like here.
Hard bottom.
Like. Well, we took Lucas Nutra hunting, and he just bailed off into the marsh before we could say
he's up to his chest in mud. Yeah.
Before you can say anything, it's all sandy bottom, so it's hard. It's not.
But the bad thing about it is when my boat hits it, that mud boat it's not a sand boat.
No,
it ain't going nowhere in that sand.
It's like hitting a brick wall.
Yep. That motor ain't gonna do nothing in that sand. Tear up the prop. But unfortunately, I ain't going to be able to make it to Kansas this season. The last 2 seasons, I went up to Kansas and shot them geese and talk about an experience. Man.
I was going to go with you this year. Like, I had the approval to go.
Well, why don't you just pay my way? We'll go. That's no problem.
Look, if I got enough subscribers on the podcast, maybe next year.
Yeah, I'll go subscribe on his podcast, so he'll take me to Kansas.
But yeah, because
that's an experience, man. You lay out in the decoys. It's on the sunny days. If you're not familiar with it, on sunny days out there, we went out and we laid out in white. We actually dressed in like what is those Tyvek suits or whatever, those paint suits. We got in that in these little lay down blinds, and they put in the front we had Canada decoys, and as it worked its way back, they went to snow decoys. We had I think the Canada geese were full bodies and silhouettes, and then as it got back, it was socks. It's just a puffy white bag basically with little markings on it to look like wings. Some of them have heads, some of them don't. And you just lay in the middle of it, man. A big old tornado of geese just start circling over you. And geese aren't like ducks, man. Ducks will come. I've had the most I've ever had duck circle was we had this flock of grays that came in, circled us about 5 times and then left. They never did come and land. But those geese, man, they'll just circle and circle and circle. And the guys are sitting there just calling. I don't know how their lips don't fall off and their lungs explode as much as they got to call them things in. But dude, when they come, they landing right on top of you. It's awesome.
So I want to go hunt a Kansas field hunt, and I want to do a flooded timber in Arkansas. Just because that's like my 2 waterfowl hunts. And I also want to do a conservation hunt. That's just because.
Like the snow geese?
Yeah, when you go up there, you take the plug out of your gun and you just shoot
as many as you can, like Rambo in the sky. Yeah, I got to do, I don't know if you call it a flooded timber, but I went with my brother last season. We ended up getting just, I think just 1, 2 wood ducks. It wasn't, again, it was a bunch flying around, but we was in this tight little trench canal type of thing like that. So by the time we seen the duck, they was gone. But that was the first time I ever actually waded into the water. We were like tucked up under some buckbrush and stuff like that in the water. That was pretty cool though. But it sounded like Vietnam going off when the daylight came on that, because that was at Delta National. I don't know if you're familiar with that up in Mississippi. I think Delta National is federal land, but it's public land. It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful woods. But boy, do they have some hunters in there. I'm talking, between duck hunters and deer hunters, and that freaks me out because we're in there duck hunting, so we're on the ground. You also have deer hunters who are up in trees shooting rifles. So, to me, if you're shooting a shotgun, it's not as bad because you don't have as much range, whatever, unless you're shooting those saber rounds, and that's a different story. But
yeah, they and what's funny is like on the park, which the park, I actually like how they have their different zones, and it's like, all right, zone 8 you can only waterfowl hunt in, right? Zone 8? Is it 8? It's the top one.
Yep, 8 right there.
Yep. It's only waterfowl. So you ain't got to worry about the guy that's not paying attention and just sees movement in the brush shooting.
Well, they're also only using shotguns too.
Yeah, but that's like my dad, and the reason I haven't really gotten to public land until now, because my dad was always like, oh, because I mean, I remember going to Salvador when they actually had ducks coming down, and like where we were parked today, they had a guy like on the next little piece of cut grass over.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on the weekends you'll have a few more where we're at, but they really don't have that. But again, that's because of ducks. They ain't got no ducks, so people don't go there too much.
It's a different world, I think, too.
Yeah. See, I haven't been. I mean, I grew up squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, stuff like that. Not really duck hunting. The only duck hunting I did when I was younger is at my grandpa's camp in Mississippi. We had a pond. He had 2 little ponds on the property, and these wood ducks started coming in. They would come in there, land, get up on the bank, eat acorns, go back in the pond, and then take off. And we would go, me, my dad, my uncle, would go in there and just crouch around the bank. No wasn't camo or nothing, just because they came in so early that they were on the water sometimes before you can even see anything. You just hear them come in, and you wait till shooting light. You shoot your limit or close to it. In the first group, about half a dozen to a dozen ducks to land in. You get a bunch of them, and then that was it. That was my extended duck hunting. So I don't know how things were in the glory days.
And like I said, I remember as a kid, but I could remember my dad and them being like, oh, we got to go to Venice. And it wasn't like today. You didn't hear people saying Venice, Venice, Venice.
Right.
It was like you had a certain group of hunters that went to Venice, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to make a weekend trip. It's like, we're going for 5 days.
Yeah.
To go down there because it was so much to get down there. And I think evolution of vehicles is a big part of it. Because like back then you didn't have gator tails. You had long shafts.
Right.
So you're not going down the river in a long shaft. So you had to have a bay boat to drag your long shaft or a flat boat.
I got news for you. If I'm crossing that river, you're going to have something dragging my boat. Because that scares the heck out of me. And then you hear about people like the foggy mornings, because fog out there don't lift.
It might not lift.
Yeah, it might not lift. It'd be all day. And I'll be doggone, I'm crossing that river in fog where I can't see the tip of my boat.
Yeah.
And they got these big old ships, barges, cruise ships. I mean, ships that cross the ocean that are going down these rivers. And I've heard people talk about they'll get to the edge of the river, turn their motor off to see if they can hear a ship coming before they take it across the river. I don't think so.
So at one point in my life, I worked on the river. And I 100% will say if it is foggy, when you have commercial traffic shut down because of fog, you don't need to be at a 16-foot or even a 20-foot, because the way it works is like your tugboats can shove in anywhere and tie off. So that's what when the Coast Guard says it's shut down, it shuts down. The problem is if you got a ship that's between anchorages, he has to make it to the next anchorage, because he can't just drop anchor anywhere in the river.
Right.
He's got to make it to a designated area. So, yeah, they're still moving somewhat. And, I mean, we've had sitting on the tugboat tied up on the bank, and you hear, because we would have to make rounds every 3 hours or 2 hours regardless, just to make sure nothing was leaking, the barge wasn't sinking.
That's usually a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to pollute the environment. But we did it because it was our job.
Or die.
But we were making a round one morning, and I mean, I can't see. I'm on a 20-foot fuel barge or 40-foot fuel barge.
As in carrying fuel?
Yeah,
no, I'm good.
So I'm on which it's double line, so you got 20 feet before you actually get to the tank. But anyway, so I'm walking.
Famous last words.
I hear buzz, and I'm like, is that? I'm like, is the generator running? What is going on? I can't see the tugboat, and I'm halfway down this barge. Next thing I know, a crabber comes flying by us. I'm like, there's no way he knew we were here. There is no way he saw anything before he passed us.
How deep? I know that river gets deep in some spots. Do you know how deep it gets?
There's spots that and it depends because it'll shallow up, but you got to remember it's minimum 15 to 20 foot deep just because the ship draft.
Well, I know there's like, at least I've been told. I haven't even looked it up. I should probably look it up. Like 100 foot deep in spots.
Oh yeah, they have boats, and what's crazy about the river is at somewhere near the G&O, actually, there's a tugboat in the middle of the river that sunk.
Oh, really?
Well, it's so it silts in within, weeks that it's silted in. So what they did was like, it's too hard to recover it where it's at. Just leave it down there.
Yeah.
They sent divers down there to patch the leaking fuel.
Wow.
Because it's safe. Right. There's no way you can recover it.
Well, you see them, they always dredging right there where the cruise ships, the port where the cruise ships are. They're constantly dredging that up so the cruise ships can fit.
That's kind of, if you understand hydraulics of it, where the cruise ship's dock is kind of a bad spot because it's coming around that Algiers point there.
Right
it is depositing right where they're on that bank.
Someone didn't think that through. I wish they would take that and go build land with it instead of just dumping it right back in the river because they're pumping it up anyway.
Yeah, because all they do is pump it into the center of the channel and it goes back down.
Yeah, but I don't make enough money to think about that. I guess there's people out there smarter than me, but money rules the world. So there's that.
Yeah, they you see something like the head of passes, which the head of pass it is mile marker 0 on the river.
I don't even know what any of that means. You just said
so. How you see when the river comes and stops and it branches off and goes all different ways.
Right.
That's called the head of passes.
Okay.
That's where all your passes go out. The river technically ended there, but you still got another 5 miles to the Gulf.
Right.
But they're always dredging that area just to keep it to where merchant ships can come in and out. And that's what they do. They just pump it off into the marsh. And they'll go all the way down, and by the time they're done, they push back up. Just start over. So,
yeah, that's wild. Yeah, no, that river scares me because I've seen what is it, Bayou Wild TV with Don Dubuque. And they went and did a kayak trip in the river catching big catfish. Now I know when the river's up, you can get into those trees between the river and the levee and everything. I'm sure there's no current. I'd love to do that because I've seen guys just driving River Road by the river. And they're pulling catfish taller than them. They're pulling them down the river. So I'd love to go hook in some catfish. That'd be a good video for the channel. You need to go find a good spot.
And the further north you get on the river, it's not safe. It's nowhere safe. You got to always have your head on the swivel on the river. But the further north you do get, there's a certain point that the ships, it's maintained steerage. So they'll throw an 8-foot swell behind them just because they have to keep going 8 knots to maintain that navigability. So it's there's points that when we're on the tugboat, it's all right, secure every watertight hatch, and it doesn't open unless you're going through it. And we would exit off the second deck, so we didn't have to open the bottom deck hatches. So, you think about a tugboat is worried about getting sunk by a ship. I don't want to be in a flatboat.
No. And I guess to bring this all together, those whistle ducks, those Mexican whistlers, or black belly whistlers, or Mexican tree ducks, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
I think the official name is black belly whistle ducks or whatever. But all through the summer, all through the spring, and early fall, those things are everywhere. Hunting season comes, they gone. But if you want to find them, you go to the river and the grain elevators. Dude, they stack up by the thousands. You could throw a cast net and get a 10-man limit. That's how many ducks they had.
So, the first winter I was on the river, we'd come down right south where the grain elevator is in West Wego.
Yep.
And there is a flotilla of dogrie out there. It looks like you could walk across dogrie. And as you're pushing with the barge, the ones that are directly in front of it get up and fly. And the rest of them just chill. Nope, you're not going to kill me? I'm cool.
They need to open, because they had in one of the surveys that, wildlife emails you.
Yeah.
At the end of a season, now actually how many they got. And I think it's the federal what's the federal one called?
U.S. Fish and Game,
Yeah.
or U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
Something like that. They sent the email out at the end of the duck season a lot of times, and they had a question on there whether we want a early season or a separate season for the whistle ducks. I mean, who's going to say no to that? Another hunting season, and we got plenty of those. We have those. I can shoot limits in my backyard every day when they're flying over until the season starts. But and those ducks, oh shoot, those ducks. Excuse me. Those ducks have to be different than regular ducks. Because if you notice, the male and females look alike. There's no distinction between them. Every other duck that we hunt, the drake is, plumes out.
Unless maybe they don't, because like when you think about like early teal season, like
they don't plume until
you could shoot a teal right now and they all look like females, and you could have a male mixed in and you'd never know. Maybe when they migrate, wherever they migrate to, they start changing at that point.
Well, yeah, but when I see them on the river by the grain elevator, I don't ever see them in different colors. I don't think they change. I'm gonna have to research that and look that up.
I want to say I've seen them. Their head, like, I think they get black around their eyes for the males or something. Like I've seen,
maybe so.
Because my grandparents live in St. Rose, but they're like, you could throw a rock and almost hit a grain elevator, and they have a pond in their backyard. And certain times of the year, they're just like
they stack up in there.
They stack up in a pond, and it's like, I really want to go over there and shoot them, but I don't feel like talking to the cops today.
Right. And then lose all your privileges. Another thing too, we were Frank and I were out there at that public land. We have alligator tags, and we're gonna be going out there. We can't do the alligators during teal season. It shuts down for whatever reason while the waterfall is open. But once that closes, he and I are gonna go out there. Unfortunately, it won't be on neither one of our YouTube channels because for some reason they will not let us film it. And well, the reason is to show swamp people. And it's obvious because the first thing before it even says you can't film anything, it says no reality shows. What else it said? Something just like
reality shows.
So obviously it's because of swamp people. Because I actually had an opportunity to do it before with another guy, be a helper, and I seen a similar paperwork. And I asked one of the agents, and he said it's basically because of that. They kind of don't want anybody doing something stupid, and then it being get out there and then they want to shut down alligator hunting altogether or something like that. I'm not really sure.
So I think a part of it could be like, excuse me. I don't know if I still have the burp, but until I burp, I'll keep talking. But so bear in Florida, they have a huge problem with bear. Like Disney World, at least like twice a week has bear swimming.
Like overpopulation?
Yeah, like overpopulation. They opened up a bear season.
They should give us some.
I think so too. I would love to hunt bear, but they have an overpopulation of these bear. They opened a season. Pictures got out that were very unflattering. I mean, and you see it on social media all the time. Kids don't think what they're posting,
right? And
I mean, it's fighter jets.
Russia? Jets flying over the house right now.
So they had some unflattering pictures get out. Well, all the people that were anti-bear
gives them
used
ammunition.
That.
Yep.
And then the people that didn't care, it turned them to be anti-bear hunting.
Yep.
So I know people that I have relatives, I'm not going to say names, but we call them the picture hunters.
Mm-hmm.
They want to limit a duck to take a picture with, and then we'll let them rot in an ice chest.
Yeah.
And I have made comments to several people in my family when they know that happens. Call me that day because I'll come and get every single bird they have.
Take your pictures. I'll eat it.
Yeah,
that's something everybody's got to be more conscious of and aware of, that when you're taking pictures for social media or whatever. I get it. I like taking my pictures and showing off the bounty and all that too. But man, you got to take tasteful pictures because there's working. Hey, we're back. All right, I don't know what's going on. There's like a delay. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, so don't take pictures with the animal's tongue hanging all out or blood everywhere, because that just gives the activists more ammunition to try and shut it all down.
And before I started with making a social media presence more and starting B-side or whatever it was called, because it's changed names 3 times in 2 years, but it's stuck with B-side now. It ain't changing again. But it's definitely, I didn't think about that. And then when YouTube is like, oh, you can't show blood. So now it's like, all right, I have 10 Nutra in the boat. Let me make sure that the good side's showing.
Right.
Because you always don't have a good side. But, at least make it to where it's not an unflattering picture of the animal.
Yep. Yeah, we just need to be more conscious and aware of that, because, there's people trying to shut it down. Like the federal lands, and they're trapping it all in the federal lands. And I understand the stigma people have with trapping, but it's just ignorance. Not don't mean in a derogatory sense.
Yeah.
It just mean lack of knowledge. Because when I first started seeing trapping on social media, I was kind of like, ooh, I don't know about that. But the more I watched it, the more I learned about it, I'm like, man, that's a lot more humane than you would think. And then we started taking trapping classes. Frank and I started taking the trapping classes and joined the Trappers Association and stuff like that. And you realize for conservation, it's great. It's good. It has a whole lot more benefits than you would think. And it's not nearly as inhumane as you would think. Because most people, who don't know about trapping, when they think about trapping, they think about the Bugs Bunny cartoon with the trap with like huge teeth, just like, chomping down on something's leg. But that's just not how it is. The teeth aren't even legal anywhere in this country.
Yeah. So and I don't think you can trap bear anywhere in this country legal. I think Maine might be the only state where you can.
I don't know.
I don't know, but I know there's very few states that you can trap bear anymore. So like them big traps have gone away. It's not even.
You would need a huge trap for a bear. Jeez, man,
it'd have to be like a 12-inch trap. Like,
yeah, that would hurt.
But what I was saying though is the first thing that actually nodded me in towards trapping was, if you notice my wedding band, well, I'll turn it so it's a little bit better. Anyway, I have a National Wild Turkey Federation band. That is one of the few organizations that I will 100% support. I love turkeys, never killed one.
What you're trying to say is you love turkeys as much as you love your wife, since it's your wedding band that you have a turkey.
Well, no, it's my silicone band, so I don't rip my finger off.
Yeah, that's what I'd have said. That's what I'd have said. I hope your wife doesn't listen to this podcast.
Probably not. But so anyway, I was listening to, I want to say it was the Meat Eater podcast, Dr. Chamberlain from the University of South Carolina, one of the Carolina states, or maybe it was Georgia. I don't know. I don't remember exactly where he's from, but
somewhere from the South.
He's he started talking. He's talking about predator control, and he's like, the only way you can get a predator under control is to trap them, because you can't kill enough raccoons, possums, coyotes, bobcats. Like, you physically cannot go out there and shoot that many of them.
Right.
So,
especially because they're nocturnal. Most of the things that we trap, you don't hardly ever even see during the day, but they'll come out in groves at night. Like over there where I go kayak fishing, man, I've been seeing scat everywhere of coyotes, and then I seen those 3 while I was in the kayak right there off the bank, and that's a large issue. I think is why we don't have any more rabbits. Like the preserve, the Jean Lafitte Barataria Park and Preserve, they don't let you kill any coyotes. Can't trap them, can't hunt them. If you see them in the deer, now obviously the pigs they want you to kill because they're invasive, but they don't want you killing any coyotes. And there's a ton of them out there. And I talked to my buddy from church goes hunting. He used to go hunt rabbits all the time on that park, but now you can't even find them.
It's hard to understand why. And then, like, I've talked to like some of the biologists, and it's like you talk to like not necessarily for that part, but a biologist that's in charge of XYZ land, and they're like, yeah, we need to get rid of this animal. Well, why don't you? because my boss tells
Yeah.
me I can't. Like, or what I think stupid is like a lot of the like some lands you'll get on and be like, oh, you can't trap, but they're gonna hire a nuisance trapper to go in
Yeah, to go
there
trap anyway.
and
Yep.
pay them, 10 times, or we would go do it for free, but they're gonna pay a guy. Which I'm not knocking nuisance trapping,
Right.
Because there's a place for it, but if you have public land, I mean, unless it's like, and I understand Salvador's because you had families that didn't want to give up their rights and they let them keep them rights, but it's like if you have a justifiable reason to hire a trapper to go in, why not see how many recreational people that would do it? Because I know,
and just put limits on it. You don't have to have it, where like other trapping. If I got like a trapping license, I go shoot as many nutria as I want during trapping season. But you put it on put a limit on it on a park or something.
I think if you're on private land, you can shoot as many as you want during regular season, huh?
Yeah, and
or you might have to be on the program.
No, I think the program. You have if just a recreational hunter can only shoot 5 nutria during the season, which is insane to me because it's an invasive species. But the goal for trapping and stuff like that is never to eliminate a species. It's just population control is all that is.
It's unless management,
unless obviously the pigs, because we want to get rid of those. If we can get rid of all the pigs, I don't think that would hurt anybody's feelings.
Well, and then you got places like I was hearing something about Texas. Like they have so many exotics running around that got loose. They're having problem with warthogs now.
I seen that. I seen that because if them rich high fence ranches that they bring these exotic animals in, and then the warthogs get out. And Texas's environment and landscape is very similar to their native. They thrive in it, just like the pigs did. Because a warthog essentially is just it's another species of pig. So so they end up having now, because they have a tremendous problem with pigs. Like we got it bad, they have it terrible.
Yeah, they're catching thousands of pigs a night on a property and not even like denting the population.
That's why they got the helicopters, and they don't even pick up the meat. It's just you just knock them down just to save everything else. Because those pigs will haul off baby deer. Yeah. They'll eat deer.
Well, what's crazy is like we see it where we hunt at an AMA, that you can see deer on camera coming, and once the pigs move in, first of all, a deer will walk a trail, and it'll be that wide, the whole width of it. They might get into a spot that they eat. They might tamper the grass down, but they're not going to completely destroy like we call it pie fiend. It's about waist high grass. When the pigs come in, that trail looks like a highway went through there, and it'll just be mud. It won't even be grass anymore. It's just.
I'll tell you, them other animals know, because the one pig that I shot, my buddy was with me on this piece of property I had permission to hunt. And we're up in the deer stand, and I had a feeder, a corn feeder, a time feeder, and that raccoons knew about it. Them little suckers, man, they didn't know how to work a feeder. That was insane what I went through to try and keep them out. But they had a raccoon come over there, and he was eating around and snooping around. And I've had them out before when I was sat in that stand. Another animal comes up, doesn't bother them. They just look at him, whatever. We heard a branch snap. That raccoon took off up a tree. And 30 seconds later, that pig came out. He knew that pig was coming. He didn't want to be nowhere around that thing.
Because a pig is an omnivore.
It'll eat everything.
It'll eat anything.
Everything.
It's like, so how do you...
Hide a body? Oh, no. Different podcast. Different podcast altogether.
But so how, you can't be like, oh, well, they like to eat this type of food, they're adaptive too. Like, they have invasive pigs from Canada down to, I don't know how far in Mexico they go.
I don't know. I would imagine they thrive there too.
But that's what I'm saying. You look at the environments that they're thriving at. You go from here, that the coldest days you might get down into the 20s, to negative degrees. But they said like the pigs up there have realized that when it get to build shelters for themselves,
that's insane.
It's like, I'm like, how do you and then a pig will start reproducing at 6 months old.
How many times a year can they reproduce? Is it
3 times a year.
3 times a
with
year?
up to 6 to 9 piglets in a litter.
That's insane.
So when I first started the Instagram, I used to do a lot of called it Fun Fact Friday,
Mm-hmm.
and it started being a lot of work because that's a lot to
It's a lot of
research
facts.
every Friday. Like, how do you do one species? But anyway, so I did one on pigs because I one of my playlists is called Invasive Assassins, and it's about targeting Rio Grande cichlids, nutras, pigs,
Right.
targeting these things. But so I went in and I looked at it and I was like, all right, so to maintain a population, you have to kill 70% of the pigs on the property.
Jeez, them.
I'm like, so if you have 100 pigs, you're killing 70 of them, and there's more than 100. And then pigs are smart. They really are. And if you where we deer hunt at, we got a bag pig problem now, but normally we could put a trap out and you put pressure on them, shoot 2 or 3 of them, and you don't see them for 2 or 3 years. Last year they shot 5 or 6 pigs, and we still see them constantly. Like this year, they're worse than they've ever been. So it's getting to the point that cable restraining pigs may be a big part of my near future.
Well, they got those leg ones that snaps that cable up their leg, and it's got that deer stop to where anything else gets in it basically lets them loose because their legs are so much thicker than the other animals.
Yeah, and then pigs is actually one of the species that you can target year round in Louisiana with.
Yeah,
because they're
raccoons. You can do raccoons too. I think it's 1 a day.
Two. I don't know. I just looked at it. It might be. I don't know.
It might be 2. It might be 2.
Yeah, and then possums are the same way. Which
armadillo. Which I mean, I'm not eating armadillo. I'm sorry. I've eaten a lot of things. I don't know if I can. Maybe if I go to Texas somewhere and a barbecue place and they got it all cleaned up and cooked for me, maybe I'll try it. But I don't know.
Yeah, because it's armadillo. My big thing is I know they cured leprosy or they have a treatment for it to where it doesn't affect you like it used to. But the fact that they carry leprosy is what really turns me off there.
I've read the Bible, and when they talk about leprosy, it doesn't sound good. So I don't think I want to mess with that.
It's it's just leprosy is definitely something I don't want to. And it's like somebody's like, I've heard people with bear, if you don't cook it all the way, you get trichinosis. I think it's trichinosis.
What them apple snails? I said them apple snails that we got invasive all over the place are good to eat, but if you don't cook it all the way or cook it right, you die. I'm like, I'm good.
I mean, it's almost like we have so many invasive species that
it's insane. I have to do a podcast just on that. I mean, you can talk for hours about all the invasive species from the vegetation to mammals, fish. I mean, it's insane.
What's really crazy, you ever heard back in the I think it was in the 60s, they release hippos to eat the hydration?
No, we do not need hippos. Them things are crazy.
I'm like, that's a great idea. Let's release hippos.
I will rod a shark while wrestling an alligator before I ever even come close to a hippo. Them things.
I mean, have you seen the videos where it's like you just see a weight cut?
Dude, they are fast and they are mean.
I said what it looks like though is like what redfish is chasing something.
Yeah, that weight
they put, and also a hippo's head comes out the water. I'd be like,
nope, I'm good. Well, we're coming up on an hour, folks. If you made it this far in the podcast, I really do appreciate you tuning in. I will be doing these podcasts live on Facebook every Tuesday/Wednesday, just depending on my work schedule because it fluctuates back and forth. But I will be releasing these in podcast form on whatever platform you get your podcast at every Tuesday morning. So thank you guys again so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you head over to Frank's social media network over there with all his stuff over there. It's B-Side Outdoors. You just search it on those platforms, you'll find it. Same with me at Pelican Bone Outdoors. Once again, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Except on Facebook, you have to search Louisiana Outdoors.
Well, you need to fix that, Frank. I'm not. They'll figure it out. Oh, excuse me. All right, guys. Thanks again, and I'll see you later.